Hi, this is Abul Hussain, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast, where we talk about how you can start or scale your digital marketing agency. Now, if you are watching this interview outside of our Facebook group for digital marketing agencies, make sure you find the link above or below this video, or go to smmamastermind.com, especially if you are looking to learn from people who are ahead of you. And that's one of the best ways to learn. It's to see what other successful agency owners are doing and emulating, not copying, emulating their strategies and their tactics. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest joining me all the way from Oregon, Portland in the USA. Her name is Lilit Barseghyan, and she is the founder of LVLVT Agency, which is a full service digital marketing agency. So we are going to talk about her journey and see what we can pick up in terms of golden nuggets and wisdom from her journey. Lilit, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining me. I mean, I know you're a very busy person, so crack on with it. And I love getting busy guests on because they always have the best stories. So for the people who don't know who you are, how about a little bit of an introduction about how you got into the digital marketing space?
Yeah, so my name's Lilit. I basically kind of got into the whole digital marketing realm. I mean, people always have their stories of like, you know, being like, oh, I was super into marketing and like had jobs in the marketing realm. And it's like, I did all of that too, you know, right out of high school. I was like, you know what's the easiest way that I can like follow my passions and dreams and stuff. I was like always into content creation and photography. And I was like, how can I use my skills that I have now to basically go on, travel the world, all that kind of stuff. So I took a gap year and then moved to Armenia for like 6 months and like had a bunch of, you know, growing time there to really like follow photography. And I was always into social media. So when I came back, I joined an amazing company called Plan, and they're an Instagram marketing tool. And while I was in that company, I learned so much about the digital marketing realm and all that. So after a while of like joining other companies and doing, you know, apprenticeships and like all that kind of stuff, I really wanted to start my own thing. I've always been into, you know, doing my own thing and not really working for one individual person. So I was like, an agency, it's the perfect thing. I can do, you know, my social media, I can do content creation, all that kind of stuff. So that's just how it basically started.
Awesome. So you've been running your agency for about 2.5 years now. What services do you provide your clients?
Yeah, so we are, as you said, a full-scale digital marketing agency, but we specialize in social media management, content creation, SEO, and like all that kind of stuff. So basically, like social media management is like the one thing we focus on primarily.
And do you offer paid campaign management as well as part of your services, or is it more on the organic side of things?
We do both. It really comes down to the client and seeing, you know, what the client has the budget for and also what they would want to do with their service. So, you know, we do it all based on individual people.
Right. And is there any particular niche or industry that you particularly work with, or do you kind of pick on whoever is a good fit?
Yeah, so basically when I was working in other agencies, they were primarily like tech focused, but I've always been a really like, you know, kind of alternative person working with like alternative niches. So for some reason, the CBD and cannabis industry has been a big one. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, we work a lot with, you know, beverages and food and clothing and a bunch of like small business like services as well. So it depends on who we get that day, but yeah.
No, that's absolutely awesome. In terms of the setup of your agency internally, how is it? Is it because obviously you have some super successful agencies that have 1 or 2 people doing everything, and then you have other agencies that has an account management team and a delivery team, and you know some other teams. What does your setup look like?
Yeah, so primarily I'm kind of like, you know, the head of the company, all that. I basically bring on new clients. I talk with a bunch of people, focus primarily on sales and social media management and strategy. So if someone comes on board and they really need a strategist, I'm the one to help out with that. But I do have other people working on, you know, sales, the SEO, the blogging, social media management day to day, all that kind of stuff. So we are one big group that works it all, but I'm primarily like the voice and the head of the company.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of the prospects that come to you for social media strategy management, some of your other services, you know, they have a social media presence already, right? People think social media is easy. You go, you post pictures and you put up posts and all of that. I mean, why does a prospect or a client come to you? What is lacking in their strategy or in what they're doing in their social media marketing?
Definitely one of the biggest things I've realized with most of the clients I have is either they don't have strong content for their social media, or they don't have the time and effort to put into the strategy and posting and engaging with their audience. I definitely think, you know, you need to have strong content that really draws in your audience, but you also need to engage and talk with, you know, all your followers, your audience, and really like prospective customers. If you don't have those three, it really kind of like hurts your social media and doesn't help much. And I always think a really strong social media account is those who have all three of those things and can really form a community and have, you know, the community members talk about their brand and really organically grow that company.
And for those of us who have been in the social media world, the digital marketing enough, we know that organic reach is something that used to be wonderful on Facebook many, many years ago. But it's something that Facebook is hampering every single day. How do you get around kind of some of the issues that other businesses have with organic reach to make sure that you get sufficient distribution of the posts?
Yeah, definitely. Working with, you know, let's say like a CBD or cannabis industry, organic advertisement is the only way to go since, you know, a lot of stuff is prohibited to, you know, advertise on Facebook and stuff. But it really comes down to what I said about, you know, community management and engagement. I have a client who, you know, we grew their account a couple thousand in just a month because of how in-depth their community was and how much they were sharing their products and like giving it to friends, even doing like giveaways and all that kind of stuff where you're really engaging and trying to bring on a new audience in alternative ways instead of just posting an ad, because sometimes an ad can reach the wrong audience. It won't really resonate with the people that much, but really I definitely think organic is the way to go, especially since, you know, Facebook and Instagram is such a pay to win kind of platform at this point, but we get around it. We find ways.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned giveaways and all of that, you know, used to be one of, probably still is one of the most favorite strategies for a lot of grow their following. Would you not say that this approach is a bit saturated now, or is it still working for you?
I would say it really depends. I try not to overdo it. It really comes down to the client as well. If they've never done a giveaway and they're, you know, a smaller startup, I say it's a great way to, you know, get the community involved, really reach out to a bigger audience, find new people, find new followers and customers. It's a great way to like put your product out there, but I definitely think it's not the best way to go to constantly do it a couple times a month. It just gets oversaturated, like you said.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's smart to begin with, but not to overuse.
Right. Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, maybe do a seasonal one rather than a weekly one.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. So when your clients sign up with you, what is their expectation of what you're going to deliver?
Yeah. So basically, either when we approach a client or they approach us, I love to have a session with them where I just talk and really figure out what their pain points are, what they're struggling with, and what we can help out with. We are what I like to pride ourselves in, a budget-friendly agency where we don't have any like set packages or any set services. We make a unique package for every client based on what they need, what they don't have, and what they want to do in the future. So if someone comes to us and they're like, we need a website, but we also need a social media manager and a strategist, we'll make a custom package for them. So it really comes down to, you know, talking with them and understanding what they need, and us explaining how, if you need a social media strategist, we're going to put our best people on your team and really figure out a strategy that works for you, your product, your audience, and go from there. So it's all super unique. And people usually come to us for growth, you know, like that's what agencies really do. It's, you know, optimizing growth and posts and all that kind of stuff, SEO, websites, everything to help companies grow, no matter
Right.
the size.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you primarily focus on getting clients on like a monthly retainer, or do you do a lot of one-off projects?
Mm-hmm. So I usually like to do a monthly retainer, since, you know, I really like to connect with my clients and really help grow with their company. It's like, I love joining, you know, super small startups. And then after a couple months, you see them like getting a bunch of traction. And after a year, you're like, wow, this is like our own child in a way, you know, like I helped this grow and bloom and stuff. So it's really great to have a monthly retainer where you can really, you know, learn and connect with the clients and also the company and the product. And then, you know, you get more attached to it and really helps you grow. Because I feel like if you don't really know the product or the people that well, you're not going to care about the product and actually, you know, advertising it and helping it grow. But once you do, it helps a lot. But we also do, you know, one-off projects, whether someone needs a website real quick, you know, we'll pull together a website for them, or either like one-off blogs and that kind of stuff. So it depends.
Okay, no, that's cool. And a lot of agency owners, they don't have an acquisition issue. They have like a retention issue where they can't keep someone on a monthly basis, or they'll pay invoice on month one, on month two, they'll start ghosting them. You know, you build a relationship with your client to ensure that they do stick around.
Yeah, so I always love having, you know, either weekly calls or monthly calls, something along that sort that really fits with the client to, you know, get to learn more about each other and really set up a relationship with the owner or the manager of that product. It really helps, you know, once you have a personal connection, even if they can't afford, you know, the product right now, they might be able to afford it later. So they'll always come back to you. I really think, you know, building a connection and a relationship is definitely what helps. Since, you know, if I had a product and I went off to an agency and I barely talked to them, I didn't really know what was happening, I wouldn't really want to waste my time and spend more money if I wasn't, you know, that connected with them. So I really try to connect and learn more about, you know, the product, the people, all that kind of stuff. And I think that definitely helps.
And in terms of managing expectations, how do you ensure that you don't kind of agree to any objectives or targets that would be setting yourself up to fail?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. I feel like, especially when starting off, a lot of agency owners, especially in the marketing field, always overpromise, and then they're, you know, brought on with the harsh reality that growth doesn't work like that. You know, you might have like a really successful client and then a client that barely gets another follower in a week. You know, it really, you know, you need to talk with, you know, the client and be like, you know, this is, if you have a product that is already setting itself up for harsh, like paid campaigns and all that stuff, where Facebook and Instagram might not want you to advertise those products, it's going to be a longer journey doing organic marketing. And if you already have a small community, it might be a slower progression to build up, you know, a couple thousand followers, a couple thousand customers, whatever it might be. So I really set that straight in the beginning. And I'm like, we're not magicians, but we're doing everything we can. We have amazing strategists and all that stuff that we're going to work to grow this product.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Need to be, I mean, they need to be reasonable and you need to be reasonable as well, and just make sure you don't.
Exactly.
Well, I don't want to say lie or exaggerate, but that is obviously a common problem. As you've rightly pointed out, some will fly with the same strategy where others fail. It's just
exactly.
It's just the name of the game. So when you started your agency, how did you start off picking up your first couple of clients?
Yeah, so a lot of the clients I actually found were off of Instagram. And I know a lot of, marketers and people who, do a lot of Instagram acquisition. They say, Instagram DMs are the place to go. But as someone who has, been on, multiple big companies' Instagrams as the background, listening to all these DMs and looking through, I say that is not the way to go, because we might get like 50 or 100 DMs a day being like, hey, we can help with, your content creation or your advertisement and all that stuff. And they just get, lost in all those DMs. When you get hundreds and you're all saying the same thing, there's no personality. So what I did starting off was I found, spent hours a day going through Instagram and really being like, this is a company that has a good product, but their photos are not the best. They don't post regularly. Their strategy is not the greatest. So I'd find an email, a good person to contact, and say all those things and be like, I love your product. I saw it. I fell in love, but your marketing might not be the best, and there's so much potential for your product that I want to help out and do this kind of thing.
This is interesting.
Yeah, so kind of like a one-off approach, but I think it definitely helped a lot more than, DMing and being left on open and not getting any response, because it's going to happen.
Businesses are getting 50, 60, 100. There's a digital marketer being born every single day, probably every single hour.
Exactly.
And they all kind of go do one course or another. They follow the same tactics that someone's who probably isn't using that tactic themselves.
Exactly.
Are flooding you in your inboxes. I think I've said this to many people, that often the person who's picking up the messages is not even the business owner.
Exactly. Yeah. I was also going to bring that up where, I'm not the business owner, but I'm managing the page. So if you're really unless it's a small startup or a small business, usually the people who are getting the DMs are not the owners. So it's kind of just not a waste of time, since if you find the right people, you will make a connection. But I feel like going to an email, really researching the email and finding either the marketing manager or the founder or someone like that and reaching out to them specifically will get you more responses and more connections.
Right. No, that's a great piece of advice there. I think if people were to just take this one piece of advice from this whole show, then that could be a game changer for. So what are you doing right now? What does your prospecting look like right now? I'm guessing you're not spending hours on Instagram.
Not anymore. I still like to go through, do a little bit of research here and there. But right now, with how everything's going on in the world and COVID and all that stuff, it is a bit harder to find, clients who have the time and budget and resources to really go on to an agency. But I've been talking with a lot of people, and really either whether or not bringing them on, just giving them advice. I don't do this for the money. I do this to help people grow, since I've always wanted to have a business, and I've always worked for people who have their own businesses. And now when you have your own agency or company, you're like, this is amazing. I want to help others get to the same point. So either if we can't bring them on as a client, I like to push them in the right direction and be like, here's a good strategy you could use, or something along that line. Definitely not, a bunch of cold emailing at this point, but, we still do it. It's a great way to, reach out to a bigger audience. And we've been trying to, reach out and branch out to different fields as well, since a lot of the time in the past, we've been in, like I said, the fashion, lifestyle, beverage, and food industry. But, we've had a bunch of business clients, and we're trying to really branch out into those fields as well and bring everyone on board.
Right. No, that's great. And a lot of agencies are also using VAs and outsourcers. Are you working with everyone who's primarily based in the US, or are you also kind of bringing on VAs and outsourcers into your agency?
Yeah, so we don't use VAs. Basically, everyone we have on board is either full-time or a contractor. And we have amazing people all over the world, in the US, in Armenia, even like all the way across the world, where if, you know, we don't get as many website demands as, you know, like we're not a website agency, but if someone comes on board and they need an amazing website, we'll bring on our contractor. So it just kind of works in that term where all the full-time people are what we usually specialize in, whether it's SEO or, you know, social media management and all that kind of stuff. But if there are one-off projects that we need someone specialized for, we'll bring in our specialized contractor.
Mm-hmm. And how do you find the right contractors? Because that's the question that keeps on coming up over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. So whether it's past connections, going through either like LinkedIn or just on like job sites, a lot of stuff I've found have been like weird connections from, you know, working for one client and they, you know, had some like SEO person and they're like, this is an amazing person, we'd love to introduce you to them, and just finding connections through that. Or even just going on, you know, threads or all that kind of stuff, where talking between agencies and being like, I need an SEO person, I need a web designer, who would you recommend? Just finding people through that. I'm lucky enough to have, you know, family and friends who have amazing connections all over the world. So definitely having that sort of platform really helped find the right people. But I definitely think it's hard to find the right people, but once you find them, it's great.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we are very quickly running out of time, and this has been such a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do part 2 at some point, maybe
for sure.
in a couple of months. Final question for you, Lilit. You know, you've been on this journey for 2.5 years. What has been your biggest learning that you could share with someone who is starting out? What kind of, I suppose, mistakes would you not make again, or kind of what have been your biggest takeaways and your biggest learnings for someone who's just starting out?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing I've come to realize is don't compare yourself to other agencies or people or business owners. Definitely starting off, you know, I was following so many of these business people and people have, you know, like just started and have these already successful agencies and all that kind of stuff. And it's great to learn from them, but at some point, if you're so, you know, kind of like just following their every step and every journey, it's putting you down in a sense, since, you know, you might go 3 months without getting a big client and you see all these people with like their multi-million-dollar companies and all that stuff, and it really puts you down and it hurts you mentally, both, you know, in your job and just regular life. So I would say really focus on yourself. You know, it takes time, it really does. You know, like either cold emailing or finding the right people and all that stuff, but you just got to keep doing it, and over time it'll get easier. You'll find the right people, you'll find the right clients, but just don't compare yourselves to other people and just go from there.
I think honestly that is probably the best piece of advice anyone can give, because, you know, kind of tactics are seasonal. They work one day and they don't work another day.
Exactly.
You know, strategies need to change. But I read something earlier on today, and, you know, it kind of, you kind of made me feel slightly nostalgic. I only saw this an hour ago, and it's something along the lines of, the heart does not grieve for what the eyes do not see. And
exactly.
That explains that point perfectly. On that note, Lilit Barseghyan, thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.